private jet was gleaming under the sun, parked quietly on the tarmac, ready to whisk its passengers away on a long journey across the country. Inside, the cabin was spacious and filled with soft, calming colors. Plush seats stretched across the room, and the gentle hum of the engines waiting to start gave a sense of security. The Millionaire family stepped aboard, carrying their young baby, who had a restless energy that seemed impossible to contain. The little one's tiny fingers gripped at everything within reach, and every few moments a soft whimper turned into a louder cry. The parents, dressed elegantly but in relaxed travel clothes, were used to traveling, but nothing could have prepared them for the challenge that awaited them this flight. They had hoped this journey would be peaceful, a chance to relax and reach their destination without worry. But as soon as the baby felt the movement of the plane, the cries began. First it was small, soft sounds, almost like a protest. Then the cries grew, turning into full-blown wails that bounced against the polished walls of the cabin. The mother tried holding the baby close, rocking gently back and forth. "Shoo! It's okay! It's okay!" she murmured, her voice soft but strained with fatigue. She offered a small bottle, hoping the familiar taste and warmth would calm the child. But the baby twisted and turned, pushing the bottle away and letting out another scream that cut through the quiet of the cabin. The father, trying to stay calm, glanced around. The other passengers were starting to notice. Some were polite, offering sympathetic smiles. Others looked impatient, shifting in their seats as if they were battling their own frustration with the noise. It was a private jet, yes, but even here, the baby's cries had a way of drawing attention. The father reached for a soft blanket, wrapping it around the baby and holding them close. Still, the cries continued, louder and more insistent, echoing off the cabin walls. Across the aisle, a young girl sat quietly. She was shy, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her eyes wide but cautious. She had been watching the baby from the moment they boarded, noticing the tension and the rising panic of the parents. She clutched a small stuffed toy, a constant companion that gave her courage in new situations. Her parents sat nearby, busy with their own preparations, leaving her to observe quietly. She didn't speak much, not out of fear, but out of habit. She preferred watching and understanding before acting. Back with the family, the mother's attempts to soothe the baby were growing desperate. She tried humming a lullaby, soft and rhythmic, thinking perhaps the familiar sound might help. The baby's cries didn't lessen. If anything, they grew more urgent, demanding attention that seemed impossible to give. The father adjusted the seat, trying to find a comfortable position where the baby might feel safe and secure. They even tried walking gently up and down the aisle, hoping movement would bring comfort. But nothing worked. The baby's eyes were wide with anxiety, tiny fists clenching and unclenching as though the world itself was overwhelming. The parents exchanged a glance, a mix of frustration and helplessness passing silently between them. They were people who could solve almost any problem with resources, influence, or a simple phone call. But here, in this small cabin, surrounded by luxury and comfort, they faced a challenge that no amount of money could fix. It was raw, human, and entirely unpredictable. The young girl continued to watch, noticing the baby's reaction to every movement and sound. She could see the little one's fear and restlessness, the way their tiny body twisted and writhed with discomfort. It was strange to watch, almost like witnessing a storm that had no forecast. She felt a tug in her heart, a mix of curiosity and empathy. Even though she was shy, she knew that sometimes small actions could make a big difference. The cabin attendants, noticing the commotion, tried to offer assistance as well. They approached carefully, understanding the delicate situation. One offered a soft blanket, another suggested a gentle rocking motion. Yet every attempt seemed to meet resistance. The baby's cries were relentless, and the parents' patience was thinning. They had hoped for a smooth, calm flight, perhaps a rare moment of peace amidst their busy lives. Instead, they were navigating a small chaos that seemed to stretch endlessly ahead. As the plane finally began to taxi, the vibrations and engine sounds added another layer of intensity to the baby's distress. Each bump and movement seemed magnified, each sound a trigger for panic. The mother tried to focus, whispering words of comfort and holding the baby close to her chest. The father sat nearby, offering support, but his own tension was visible. He ran a hand through his hair, thinking of ways to calm the baby that didn't rely on anything mechanical or material. Passengers watched in quiet anticipation, some holding their breath, wondering if the situation would escalate further. The young girl, still clutching her toy, shifted slightly in her seat, her mind turning over ideas. She had always been observant, noticing small details that others might miss. And in that moment, she realized she might be able to do something, even if she didn't quite know what it would be. She felt a small surge of determination. The baby's cries continued, filling the cabin with a mix of tension and urgency. The parents, though affluent and accustomed to having solutions, found themselves powerless. Every trick, every tool, every method they had used before seemed useless in the face of raw emotion. The mother's voice was hoarse from repeated attempts to soothe, and the father's hands shook slightly as he tried to maintain calm. And then, quietly, almost unnoticed at first, the young girl made a decision. She would try something simple, something unexpected, something human. She didn't have toys, gadgets, or money to fix the situation, but she had empathy, a quiet courage, and a willingness to reach out. She shifted in her seat, taking a deep breath, and prepared to act. The parents were too absorbed in their attempts to notice the small movement at first. The baby's cries filled the cabin, echoing off the walls and seeming to stretch endlessly. The young girl stood, hesitating only a moment before stepping toward the distressed child. The passengers watched with quiet curiosity, unsure of what to expect. She held out her hand gently, a simple gesture that carried a surprising weight of compassion. The moment hung in the air, tense and fragile. The baby paused mid-cry, eyes flicking toward the small figure approaching. There was a spark of curiosity, a tiny break in the storm of panic. The parents looked on, stunned, as the first real sign of calm appeared. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. The baby's wails lessened, replaced by soft, tentative sounds that hinted at a willingness to engage. The cabin, once filled with tension and anxiety, seemed to breathe a little easier. The millionaire parents, usually in control of every situation, realized that help had come from the most unexpected source. A shy little girl with nothing but her presence and her willingness to care. The first part of the journey, marked by panic and uncertainty, had reached a turning point. And in that small human moment, everyone in the cabin felt the quiet power of empathy and kindness. As the plane lifted off the ground, the hum of the engines filled the cabin, a constant vibration that seemed to add to the baby's discomfort. The cries, though momentarily softened by the young girl's gentle approach, soon returned, filling the air with urgent, piercing sound. The parents exchanged weary glances, each silently acknowledging the struggle they faced. Despite their wealth and the luxury surrounding them, they felt powerless. Every tool they possessed, soft toys, lullabies, blankets, even their soothing voices, had been met with resistance. The mother tried rocking the baby again, moving from side to side with practiced care. She whispered soft, calming words, a mixture of reassurance and desperation. The baby's small fists tightened around the blanket, eyes wide with fear, refusing to be comforted. The father, meanwhile, tried a different approach. He took a seat slightly back, giving the mother space while attempting to catch the baby's gaze with a gentle smile, hoping to distract and calm. The baby's attention flickered briefly, but it was fleeting. Each time the baby began to relax, the slightest sound or movement would send them back into crying. The young girl watched quietly, her heart tugged by the scene unfolding in front of her. She had been observing the baby closely, noticing how their cries were not just about discomfort but fear. It was a fear amplified by the strange sounds of the jet, the movement underfoot, and perhaps the sense of being in a place so unfamiliar. Her small mind worked quickly, thinking of ways to reach through that fear, to connect, to soothe. She noticed something the adults hadn't. The baby's eyes were drawn to movement, to gentle, predictable motions. The girl adjusted her approach. She opened her small backpack and took out a soft toy she had brought for comfort. Holding it out carefully, she began to make a slow, swaying motion with it, humming a soft tune she had learned at home. Her voice was quiet, almost shy, but it carried a warmth that reached the baby in a way that no blanket or lullaby had managed. The baby's cries paused briefly, curiosity sparking as their eyes locked onto the little figure moving with the toy. The parents, still exhausted and tense, noticed the shift. The father's jaw relaxed slightly, and the mother's eyes widened in surprise. For the first time in what felt like hours, there was a break in the panic. The baby's small hands reached toward the toy, tentative and uncertain, exploring something beyond fear for the first time since the flight began. The girl, encouraged by the small response, continued her gentle motions, her humming growing steadier. She kept her movements slow and careful, aware that sudden changes might frighten the baby again. The cabin, which had been filled with tension and anxious whispers, now held a quiet, watchful calm. Passengers turned their heads, curious and hopeful, observing the unfolding scene. Even the attendants paused, unsure whether to intervene or let this unexpected moment continue. The baby, now partially distracted, made small cooing sounds, tentative but growing. The parents, noticing the transformation, felt a wave of relief wash over them. They had been struggling with every method they could think of, yet a simple human gesture from a child was achieving what they could not. It was a humbling reminder that sometimes solutions come from the most unexpected places. The young girl's confidence grew with each tiny sound the baby made. She realized that fear could be replaced by trust, even in moments of chaos, with patience and understanding. The baby's cries lessened, replaced by a series of soft coos and tentative smiles. The mother let out a quiet sigh, tears forming at the corners of her eyes, not just from relief but from the unexpected beauty of witnessing a genuine human connection. The father, still holding the baby's gaze, felt a profound gratitude toward the shy child who had bridged the gap between panic and calm. As the flight continued, the girl kept her attention on the baby, allowing the child to gradually grow more comfortable with her presence. She spoke softly now, her words simple and gentle, almost like a whisper meant only for the baby. The baby responded with small giggles and reaching motions, finally beginning to trust someone outside the immediate family. The parents watched, amazed at the patience and instinctive kindness of the young girl, realizing that no wealth or luxury could replicate the power of empathy. Time seemed to slow in that small cabin. Every passenger could feel the shift in energy, a quiet warmth replacing the earlier tension. The baby, now engaged with the girl, seemed almost transformed. No longer panicked, the child explored the toy, laughed softly, and even reached toward the girl's hands. The parents exchanged glances, gratitude and humility written clearly on their faces. They had learned a lesson that even their most advanced resources could not teach. True connection often comes from simple, genuine gestures of care. The attendants, recognizing the calm, stepped back, allowing the moment to continue without interference. Some passengers offered smiles, others whispered comments of admiration, impressed by the young girl's courage and sensitivity. She had crossed the invisible barrier of shyness to bring peace to a situation that had seemed impossible. Her small actions had created ripples throughout the cabin, touching everyone present. The mother gently spoke to the girl, thanking her softly, while the father nodded in appreciation. The baby, now fully calm, reached for the toy again, then looked toward the girl with trust and curiosity. The bond formed in those few minutes was profound, a silent understanding that kindness had the power to transform fear into comfort. The girl's eyes sparkled with quiet satisfaction, pleased to see the baby's fear replaced by curiosity and joy. As the flight leveled off and the engines settled into a steady rhythm, the baby's cries were replaced entirely by laughter and soft cooing. The parents finally allowed themselves to relax, feeling an immense sense of relief and gratitude. The young girl, once shy and hesitant, had stepped into a role that no one had expected her to fill. She had turned a moment of chaos into one of connection, showing that empathy and courage can emerge from even the quietest of souls. Passengers began to settle into their own spaces, some stealing glances at the small scene, inspired by what they had witnessed. The cabin had transformed from a place of tension to one of warmth and human connection. The millionaire family, though accustomed to luxury and problem-solving, had learned a humbling lesson. That wealth could not replace the power of genuine care and attention. The young girl remained close to the baby for the remainder of the flight, ensuring that the child felt secure and comforted. Her shy demeanor never fully disappeared, but her confidence in her ability to help had grown immeasurably. The parents observed silently, aware that this child had given their baby something priceless: calm, trust, and the first moments of connection during a stressful journey. By the time the plane approached cruising altitude, the baby was content, cooing happily and engaging with both the parents and the young girl. The cabin, once filled with tension, now held a gentle peace. The parents had learned a valuable lesson about patience, empathy, and the unexpected ways help can arrive. The young girl, though quiet and reserved, had left a lasting impact on everyone aboard. It was a simple reminder that sometimes the smallest, quietest people can make the biggest difference in moments that matter the most. The cabin had grown quiet in a way that was unusual for a flight with a restless baby. The earlier chaos had softened into a gentle rhythm, punctuated by the soft coos and giggles of the baby and the quiet, patient humming of the shy little girl. The parents, still holding their child, exchanged smiles of relief, realizing that a small act of kindness had turned a tense, nearly unbearable situation into a calm, peaceful environment. The girl, still holding her toy, sat nearby, careful not to overwhelm the baby but always ready to respond to a need. Time seemed to stretch as the plane settled into cruising altitude. The baby had grown curious, reaching out to touch the girl's hands and the soft toy she offered. The parents watched in amazement. They had prepared for a smooth flight with all the comforts money could buy, yet the solution had come from something so simple: a gentle human connection. It was a humbling experience, and one they would not soon forget. The young girl's confidence continued to grow as she noticed the baby responding more and more to her presence. She whispered softly, showing the baby small gestures and movements that were slow, predictable, and comforting. Each time the baby responded with a small giggle or coo, her heart swelled with pride. She had not expected to be the source of calm in this situation, but she felt a quiet sense of purpose. The cabin, once filled with tension and anxious murmurs, now felt like a small world of connection, shared between a few people who understood the power of kindness. Passengers who had been watching the situation unfold began to relax as well. They noticed the change, the way the baby's panic had melted into curiosity and joy. Some whispered quietly to each other, sharing admiration for the small girl's courage and empathy. Others simply smiled, feeling warmed by the simple beauty of human connection unfolding before them. The millionaire parents, accustomed to attention and control, found themselves humbled, observing how their child could be soothed not by wealth or gadgets, but by the instinctive kindness of another child. The baby began to explore the toy more confidently, reaching for it and giggling each time it moved gently. The girl responded carefully, ensuring that her movements were slow and comforting. It was a delicate dance, a silent communication of trust and reassurance. The parents noticed how natural and instinctive her actions were, how she seemed to understand the baby's emotions in a way that they themselves had struggled to grasp. They felt grateful and amazed, realizing that sometimes solutions come from unexpected sources. The mother spoke softly to the girl, thanking her in gentle tones. The girl, still shy, nodded quietly, feeling a mix of pride and embarrassment. She had stepped into a role she never imagined she would occupy, bringing comfort and peace to a situation that had seemed impossible. The father watched, a smile tugging at his lips, realizing that the quiet, unassuming presence of this young girl had made more impact than any amount of money or planning could have achieved. As the flight continued, the baby grew more comfortable, leaning against the mother while occasionally reaching toward the girl or the toy. The parents allowed themselves to relax fully for the first time, enjoying the soft, joyful sounds of their child's laughter and the gentle humming of the girl beside them. The cabin attendants moved quietly, respecting the peaceful atmosphere, grateful for the calm that had returned. The young girl, noticing the parents' relief, felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. She had helped in a way that mattered without fanfare or recognition. Her small actions had bridged a gap, connecting hearts in a moment of genuine human empathy. She realized that even the quietest, most unassuming people can make a significant difference when they act with kindness and patience. Passengers continued to watch, inspired by the scene. The baby's laughter echoed softly, creating a ripple of warmth throughout the cabin. It was a reminder to everyone that even in situations filled with tension and fear, human connection has the power to transform. The millionaire parents, usually in control of every aspect of their lives, were reminded that some of the most important lessons come not from wealth or planning, but from humility and openness to unexpected help. The baby's attention was now split between the girl and the parents, showing curiosity and trust in both. The parents took turns speaking softly to the child, reinforcing the calm that had taken hold. The young girl continued her gentle movements, humming occasionally, ensuring that the baby felt secure and happy. It was a small, quiet moment, yet it carried a weight of meaning that touched everyone present. As the plane flew steadily, the parents reflected on the experience. They had been caught in a storm of panic, a situation where nothing they tried seemed to work. Yet the shy little girl, with no experience, no tools, and no expectation of reward, had managed to calm their child through simple, genuine care. It was a humbling reminder that empathy and attentiveness are often more powerful than any resource money can buy. The baby now reached out to touch the girl's hands, giggling and cooing in delight. The parents watched, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and awe. They realized that moments like these, small and seemingly ordinary, hold the greatest value. The young girl had taught them a lesson they would carry forever. That courage and kindness, no matter how quiet or humble, can have a profound impact. Passengers who had been observing the unfolding story whispered softly among themselves, sharing admiration for the girl's bravery and empathy. Some were parents themselves, reflecting on how powerful a simple act of care can be. Others were travelers who had witnessed many flights, yet few had seen a moment so pure and human. The cabin, once filled with noise and tension, now held a gentle, warm energy that lingered with everyone present. The young girl, sensing the baby's comfort, allowed herself a small smile. She had acted not for recognition but out of instinct and compassion, and the results had been immediate and tangible. She realized that sometimes, being small and quiet does not mean being powerless. Her actions had brought peace, trust, and connection, and that was more valuable than anything she could have imagined. The baby continued to play with the toy, occasionally glancing toward the girl, the parents, and the surroundings with growing curiosity and confidence. The parents, now fully relaxed, engaged with their child in a way they hadn't been able to during the earlier chaos. They laughed softly, whispered words of love, and marveled at the unexpected help that had transformed the flight. Time moved gently, the plane flying steadily above the clouds. The baby, the young girl, and the parents were caught in a quiet, shared world of trust and understanding. The cabin, which had once felt tense and overwhelming, now felt safe and comforting. Everyone present had been touched by the display of empathy and courage from a child who had stepped forward in a moment of need. The young girl, sitting back with her toy now resting gently in her lap, reflected on what had happened. She had acted from instinct, from a place of care and observation, and had succeeded in calming a distressed baby when adults had struggled. She understood, even at her young age, that human connection transcends wealth, age, and experience. The lesson was simple but powerful. Kindness and patience are sometimes all that is needed to make a difference. The parents looked at the girl with deep gratitude, silently acknowledging the impact she had made. Their baby, once panicked and frightened, was now relaxed, playful, and happy. The cabin attendants, passengers, and everyone present felt the gentle change in the atmosphere, a calm and warmth that radiated quietly through the space. The millionaire family knew that they had witnessed something rare, a small child's bravery and empathy creating a profound change in a high-stress situation. As the plane continued on its journey, the baby grew more comfortable with both the girl and the parents. Laughter, soft coos, and gentle humming filled the air, replacing the earlier cries and tension. The young girl had become an essential part of this moment, a quiet hero whose presence had brought peace and connection. The parents, humbled and grateful, realized that sometimes the most unexpected people can offer the most meaningful help. By the end of this part of the flight, the baby was fully calm, engaged, and playful. The young girl, still shy but quietly proud, had made a lasting impression on everyone around her. The parents learned a valuable lesson about empathy, humility, and the unexpected sources of help that can appear in moments of need. It was a story that would stay with them, a reminder of the quiet, powerful ways that kindness can transform lives. As the flight continued, the atmosphere in the cabin had shifted completely. What had started as chaos and panic had transformed into a scene of gentle calm and quiet connection. The baby, once inconsolable, now giggled and cooed, reaching out for the young girl who had become the source of comfort and reassurance. The millionaire parents, still holding their child, watched in awe at the unexpected turn of events. They realized that this small, shy girl had done something they could not, something more powerful than any material comfort or technological aid. The young girl, feeling the baby's trust, allowed herself to relax slightly. She understood that the baby's fear had been replaced by curiosity and connection. Her confidence grew with each smile and coo, and she continued to engage gently, her movements slow and thoughtful. She whispered softly, hummed familiar tunes, and offered the toy in a way that seemed to create a bridge between fear and comfort. The parents observed in silence, deeply moved by the empathy and patience displayed by someone so young and unassuming. Passengers began to notice the change as well. Those who had been tense or frustrated earlier now smiled, some quietly applauding the quiet heroism of the young girl. The cabin attendants, trained to handle any situation, stood back and watched, realizing that what had calmed the baby was not a technique or tool, but pure human connection. They exchanged glances with one another, acknowledging that sometimes the simplest gestures could create the most profound effects. The baby, now fully engaged, reached for the girl's hands and the soft toy, giggling with delight. The parents, filled with relief, whispered words of encouragement to their child, grateful for the peace that had returned. The father's hand rested lightly on the mother's shoulder, and they shared a look of silent admiration and appreciation for the young girl who had made such a difference. It was a humbling reminder that wealth and experience cannot replace empathy and compassion. The young girl, sensing the parents' gratitude, felt a quiet warmth in her heart. She had acted out of instinct, without expectation of reward or recognition, and the results were undeniable. She realized that sometimes, courage and kindness emerge most powerfully from those who are least noticed. Her small, gentle actions had not only soothed the baby, but had also created a ripple effect, inspiring everyone in the cabin to witness and appreciate the quiet strength of empathy. As the baby's laughter filled the air, the parents began to relax fully, enjoying the moment in a way they had not been able to during the initial chaos. The mother held the baby close, whispering words of love and reassurance, while the father engaged gently, making soft noises that elicited giggles. The young girl continued her careful movements, humming occasionally and offering the toy when the baby reached for it. It was a delicate balance, a quiet dance of trust and care, and it seemed to work effortlessly. Passengers observed in silence, struck by the beauty of the scene. The baby's transformation from panic to comfort was remarkable, and the young girl's role in it was undeniable. Some passengers whispered comments of admiration, while others simply smiled, moved by the demonstration of human kindness. Even the cabin attendants, accustomed to handling emergencies and challenges, recognized the extraordinary nature of what had happened. It was a moment that would stay with everyone on the flight, a reminder of the power of empathy and the unexpected ways it can manifest. The parents, still holding their child, leaned closer to the young girl. Their gratitude was evident in their eyes, and they spoke softly, thanking her for her courage and compassion. The girl, shy but proud, nodded quietly, understanding that her actions had made a lasting impact. The baby, now calm and playful, reached for the toy once more, laughing and exploring, fully immersed in the moment. It was a scene of connection, trust, and human warmth that transcended age, wealth, and experience. The flight continued smoothly, the baby now relaxed in the parents' arms, while still occasionally engaging with the young girl. The cabin, once filled with tension and anxiety, now held a gentle, reassuring energy. The parents reflected on the experience, realizing that the most powerful solutions are often not those that money can buy, but those that come from genuine care and attention. They had been reminded that even in the most stressful situations, human connection can transform fear into comfort, panic into trust. The young girl, sitting quietly with her toy, felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had acted without expectation, guided only by her observation and empathy. Her small gestures had created a profound impact, calming a distressed baby and inspiring everyone in the cabin. She understood that kindness and courage are not measured by size, age, or status, but by the willingness to act when it matters most. The lesson was clear. Even the quietest people can create meaningful change. Passengers, moved by the unfolding scene, began to share quiet smiles and nods of appreciation. Some reflected on their own lives, thinking about moments when small acts of kindness had made a difference. Others simply enjoyed the warmth and humanity of the moment, feeling a sense of connection that transcended their own personal experiences. The cabin had transformed from a place of stress and tension to one of calm, understanding, and shared humanity. The parents continued to interact with the baby, now fully relaxed and playful. They spoke softly, laughed quietly, and marveled at the transformation that had occurred. The young girl, still shy but increasingly confident, remained nearby, ready to offer comfort and reassurance whenever needed. The baby, sensing safety and trust, continued to explore, giggling and cooing, fully immersed in the moment. As the flight progressed, the parents reflected on the lessons learned. They had encountered a situation where their wealth and resources were ineffective, yet a small, shy child had provided a solution through empathy and patience. It was a humbling reminder that human connection cannot be bought or forced, but must be nurtured and respected. They felt grateful, not just for the calm, but for the opportunity to witness the power of kindness firsthand. The young girl, observing the baby and the parents, felt a quiet pride in her actions. She had stepped forward when it mattered, and the impact had been immediate and meaningful. She realized that even in situations where she might feel small or overlooked, her choices and actions could create significant change. The baby's laughter, the parents' gratitude, and the calm energy in the cabin were proof of that truth. Passengers continued to watch, inspired by the scene. Some whispered softly to each other, reflecting on the courage and empathy displayed by the young girl. Others simply smiled, feeling the warmth and connection in the cabin. The cabin attendants moved quietly, ensuring that the peaceful atmosphere was maintained, recognizing that the transformation had occurred not through instruction or protocol, but through a genuine human act of care. The baby, now fully engaged and comfortable, reached out to the young girl and the toy repeatedly, exploring the world with curiosity and trust. The parents, filled with relief and admiration, continued to interact gently, reinforcing the sense of safety and connection. The young girl, attentive and patient, continued her quiet role, ensuring that the baby felt secure and loved. As the plane flew steadily, the atmosphere in the cabin remained calm and warm. The parents reflected on the extraordinary events, realizing that this experience had taught them something profound about human connection, empathy, and the power of small, meaningful gestures. The young girl had reminded them that even in moments of chaos and stress, patience, observation, and kindness can create miracles. The baby, now happy and playful, engaged fully with the girl and the parents. The parents laughed softly, whispered words of love, and marveled at the unexpected lesson in empathy and courage. The young girl, sitting quietly but confidently, had transformed the flight experience, creating a lasting impact that would be remembered by all who witnessed it. The cabin, once tense and chaotic, had become a space of warmth, connection, and shared humanity, a reminder that kindness and understanding can overcome even the most challenging situations. The plane continued to fly smoothly, gliding above the clouds with a calm hum that matched the new atmosphere in the cabin. The baby, now fully relaxed, had grown playful and curious, exploring the soft toy and occasionally reaching out for the shy little girl. The millionaire parents watched in quiet awe, realizing that the source of their child's comfort and calm had been this unassuming young girl who had quietly stepped into a moment of need. They felt a deep gratitude, a recognition that even their wealth could not replicate the power of empathy and human connection. The young girl, feeling the baby's trust and curiosity, continued to engage gently. She whispered softly, moved the toy in slow, comforting motions, and hummed a gentle tune. Each coo and giggle from the baby reinforced her quiet confidence. She had become a source of calm and reassurance, and though shy, she now understood that her actions mattered in a profound way. The parents, observing this transformation, were reminded that the most important things in life often come from the simplest acts of care. Passengers continued to watch the scene unfold, many inspired by the unexpected display of empathy. Some whispered quietly to each other, expressing admiration for the young girl's courage and sensitivity. Others simply smiled, touched by the gentle transformation that had occurred in the cabin. Even the cabin attendants, who were trained to manage emergencies and handle distressed passengers, felt the quiet power of what had happened. They realized that while procedures and tools can help, sometimes pure human connection is the strongest solution. The baby reached out repeatedly, giggling and cooing, exploring the toy and the hands of the young girl. The parents smiled warmly, whispering reassurances and words of love. Their hearts were full, not only because the baby was calm and happy, but because they had witnessed a remarkable lesson in humility and empathy. The shy little girl had bridged the gap between panic and peace, showing that courage and kindness can come from anyone, regardless of age or status. The young girl, noticing the parents' gratitude, felt a quiet warmth in her heart. She had acted out of instinct and compassion, with no expectation of reward. Yet the impact of her actions was undeniable. She had calmed a distressed baby, inspired everyone in the cabin, and reminded adults of a truth they often forget. Patience, empathy, and genuine attention can create miracles. Her shyness had not stopped her. Instead, it had allowed her to act with thoughtfulness and care. As the flight progressed, the baby grew more confident, exploring both the toy and the gentle hands of the girl. The parents continued to interact softly, laughing quietly and speaking words of love. The cabin, once tense and filled with the cries of a distressed child, now held a gentle warmth. Passengers relaxed, drawn into the peaceful atmosphere and inspired by the display of human kindness. Even those who had initially felt impatience or frustration could not help but feel touched by the scene. The young girl, sitting quietly but attentively, continued her role as a source of calm. She moved slowly, always careful not to startle the baby, and whispered softly when needed. Each response from the baby, whether a coo, giggle, or tentative smile, reinforced the power of her actions. The millionaire parents watched in amazement, understanding that what had worked could not have been achieved through wealth, gadgets, or experience alone. This had been a lesson in empathy and the quiet strength of simple, genuine care. Passengers began to reflect on the scene, inspired by the young girl's courage and compassion. Some thought about their own children, wondering how small acts of attention and kindness could impact moments of fear or distress. Others simply appreciated the quiet beauty of the moment, the way a small gesture had transformed the energy in the cabin. The cabin attendants, moving discreetly, ensured that the peaceful environment remained undisturbed, witnessing the remarkable effect of human connection firsthand. The baby, fully engaged and happy, continued to explore, laughing and cooing, trusting both the parents and the young girl. The parents whispered words of encouragement and love, marveling at the shift from earlier chaos. The young girl, attentive and patient, had created an environment of trust and safety that allowed the baby to thrive. The scene was a reminder to everyone present that courage and kindness, even from those who are quiet or shy, can produce extraordinary results. As the plane cruised above the clouds, the parents reflected on the experience. They realized that while they had prepared for comfort, safety, and a smooth journey, the true solution had come from a human heart acting with empathy. The shy little girl had provided calm, trust, and connection in a way that no material resource could replicate. The lesson was clear. Patience, attentiveness, and genuine care are powerful tools that transcend wealth and experience. The baby continued to giggle and reach for the toy, exploring with growing curiosity. The parents smiled, fully relaxed and grateful for the transformation. The young girl, feeling quiet pride, remained nearby, ready to provide comfort whenever needed. Her actions had created a lasting impact, not only on the baby but on everyone who had witnessed her courage and empathy. The cabin, once tense and stressful, now held a gentle warmth and shared humanity that could be felt by all. Passengers, inspired by the scene, exchanged quiet smiles and glances. Some whispered softly, sharing admiration for the young girl's bravery and sensitivity. Others reflected on moments in their own lives when a small act of kindness had made a difference. The cabin attendants continued to observe, moved by the scene, understanding that what had transformed the flight was not a procedure, a tool, or money, but the quiet act of care from someone small and unassuming. The parents, still holding their child, leaned closer to the young girl. Their gratitude was evident in their eyes, and they spoke softly, expressing thanks and admiration. The girl, shy but proud, nodded quietly, recognizing that her actions had brought peace and happiness. The baby, now playful and trusting, reached out toward both the girl and the parents, fully immersed in the moment. It was a scene of connection, trust, and human warmth that transcended age, wealth, and status. As the flight approached its later stages, the baby remained content and playful, fully calm and happy. The young girl had fulfilled a role she never expected, providing comfort, reassurance, and connection through her quiet presence. The parents, humbled and grateful, reflected on the lessons learned, that wealth cannot replace empathy, and that courage and kindness can come from anyone, no matter how small or shy. Passengers continued to watch, inspired by the unfolding scene. Some whispered quietly to each other, reflecting on the empathy displayed. Others simply smiled, feeling the warmth and humanity of the moment. The cabin had transformed from a space of tension and stress to one of calm, connection, and shared understanding. The young girl's actions had created a ripple effect that touched everyone present, reminding them of the simple yet profound power of human kindness. The plane glided above the clouds, the baby giggling and exploring, the parents relaxed and grateful, and the young girl quietly proud of her role. The cabin was filled with a gentle, warm energy, a testament to the unexpected ways courage and kindness can transform lives. The parents knew that this moment, simple yet profound, would remain with them forever. A reminder that empathy, patience, and genuine care are treasures more valuable than any material possession. As the flight neared its destination, the baby remained calm, engaged, and happy. The parents continued to express their gratitude to the young girl, speaking softly, their hearts full. She remained shy but quietly confident, knowing she had made a lasting difference. The cabin, once tense and chaotic, had become a space of warmth, trust, and shared humanity. Everyone on board had witnessed a small act of courage that created an extraordinary impact. By the time the plane began its descent, the baby was content, playful, and fully calm. The parents, overwhelmed with gratitude, whispered words of thanks and admiration to the young girl, recognizing that her quiet courage had made the journey not only bearable but memorable. Passengers, inspired by the scene, reflected on the power of kindness and empathy, understanding that even the smallest gestures can change the course of events. The young girl, shy yet proud, had transformed a moment of panic into a lesson in human connection that would remain with everyone on board.